Hi, second graders. This is Cinderella week, so this is our most traditional Cinderella story. This is the one that tells it in the most straightforward, basic way. It's in our Journeys book. It's on page 470. So this is the most traditional Cinderella story. We're going to read this one to kind of see what the normal story is, and then we're going to be reading this week's Cinderella stories all around the world, so all different cultures and animals and types of Cinderella stories. This is the most traditional one, Cinderella. So find your Journeys book, turn to page 470, and you can read along and look at the pictures closer at home. Cinderella. Once upon a time, there lived a girl named Cinderella. Cinderella was smart, kind, and beautiful. Her father loved her very much, and she loved him. Cinderella had a stepmother and two stepsisters too. They did not love Cinderella. They were jealous of her and never kind. Cinderella had to do all the chores. She mopped the floors and washed all of the dirty dishes. She dusted and scrubbed and polished every single thing in the house. And one day, Cinderella's family received an invitation to the ball. The prince was having a dance and inviting all the young women in the kingdom. Cinderella ironed her stepsisters' dresses. She brushed their hair, she fixed their bows, and then she waved goodbye as they skipped off to the ball. Cinderella was not allowed to go. After everyone left the house, Cinderella sat alone by the fireplace and cried. Tears streamed down her beautiful face. "Oh, how I wish I could go to the ball," Cinderella sobbed. "Oh, how I wish I had a beautiful dress to wear." Just then a tiny woman with wings flew through the window. She had a wand in her hand. It was Cinderella's fairy godmother. "Why are you crying, dear?" the fairy godmother asked Cinderella. "I want to go to the ball too," cried Cinderella. "Then you shall go," said the fairy godmother. There's her fairy godmother right there. "Then you shall go," said the fairy godmother. Cinderella's fairy godmother waved her hand in the air. Poof! A pumpkin transformed into a golden coach. 6 mice turned into a team of horses to pull the coach. Whoosh! Cinderella's old, worn-out clothes were changed into a beautiful pink and silver gown and 2 glass slippers. That's the magic part. "Well, what are you waiting for?" said the fairy godmother. The fairy godmother asked Cinderella. "You need to get to that ball. Just make sure you come home by midnight." The prince saw Cinderella as soon as she entered the ballroom. He could not believe his eyes. She was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. The prince asked Cinderella to dance, and the prince soon discovered that Cinderella was smart and kind, and he fell completely in love with her. Cinderella learned that the prince was good and noble. Cinderella fell in love with him too. Soon enough, the clock began to strike midnight in the ballroom. Cinderella gasped, turned to race out of the castle. As she ran out, one of her glass slippers fell off her foot. Cinderella did not stop to get it. The prince rushed after Cinderella, but he couldn't catch her. He picked up the glass slipper, and he sighed. Oh, it belonged on the foot of the girl he loved. He vowed he would find Cinderella and marry her. The prince was true to his word. We're on this page now. The prince was true to his word. With the glass slipper in hand, he knocked on every door in the kingdom. He was looking for the girl whose foot would fit into the slipper. Every girl wished the slipper would fit, especially Cinderella's stepsisters. The stepsisters tugged and pulled on the slipper. They pushed with all their might, but they could not fit their big feet into the slipper. Cinderella watched her stepsisters as she stood next to the fireplace. At last, she stepped out so the prince could see her. "May I try?" she asked shyly. You know the ending. The prince knelt down in front of Cinderella and he held out the glass slipper. Cinderella placed her foot into the slipper and it fit her perfectly. However, the prince did not need to see that. He looked into Cinderella's eyes and he knew that she was his true love. The prince took Cinderella back to the castle, and they were married the next day. Then Cinderella, who was always kind, invited her father, her stepmother, and her stepsisters to live with the prince and her castle, and to live with the prince and her in the castle, and they all lived happily ever after. So this has the very traditional parts of a Cinderella story. It has the girl who was loved by her father and disliked by her stepmother and stepsisters, who treated her very mean. She did all the chores. She dressed in rags. Then there's a big party in the traditional story. It's a ball. She wants to go to the ball, and the magic happens with the fairy godmother who dresses her up, and she goes to the ball. On the way, when she leaves, she loses a shoe. The prince finds it, and they fall and finds her again, and they live happily ever after. This week I love our writing assignment. On Thursday you get to do some writing, and it is to write your own Cinderella story. So be thinking what your Cinderella character might be like. You'll follow the elements of the story. She's going to do all the chores and be treated mean. Then there's going to be some kind of party coming, some kind of ball or festival that she wants to go to, and she's going to magically get dressed and ready for it. She's going to go to the ball. You're going to talk about the big party. And then you get to talk about the ending, about how she loses a shoe, and then she finds her connection with the prince or whoever it may be in your story, with finding the shoe that fits. So your Cinderella story could be a girl and a prince or a king. It could be an animal. It could be a boy. You could write the story as if it's a whole different gender, and a boy finding his true love. You could write it Minecraft version even. I mean, think creatively. So this is the traditional Cinderella story, but be thinking of what other kind of Cinderella stories you could create, and see if you could write one too. We're going to be listening to stories all around the world, but you also get to write your version of Cinderella. So be thinking about that as you hear these stories this week. I miss you guys. Bye-bye.